The first question anyone new to comic books asks is, where do I begin? A very logical, important question. Where do you begin? Marvel has been around for over 60 years. DC over 80. Their stories have built upon each other for decades, and jumping in can seem like a daunting task. But it shouldn't be. Comics are meant to be fun and engaging for all ages. I have an idea for an answer for where to begin with Marvel, but since DC will be rebooting its cinematic universe in the next few years, and many newcomers to the comics world will be wondering where to begin learning about new characters, I thought delving into DC would be a better idea at the moment. Besides, as much as I love the Fantastic Four, I'm a DC boy at heart. Well, luck is with you, friend. There is a one-stop shop for everything DC Comics. My favorite full comic series of all time, DC Comics Presents. Begun in 1978, at the heart of the Bronze Age, my personal favorite era of DC Comics, DC Comics Presents is a team-up series that is perfect for new readers. I would know. That's where I started on my DC journey a few years ago, and the series where I found many of my favorite DC characters. Every issue shows Superman, the greatest hero of all time, teaming up with the new hero in mostly one-shot stories. This is the best way to meet all of the wonderful characters that make up the DC roster, heroes and villains, and it's cost-effective. Of course, the issue with Superman and He-Man is about $300, but most of them are relatively inexpensive. On average, they'll cost you about $5, but you can find many of them in the dollar bin at your local comic shop. And you don't need to get every issue. Let's say you want to learn about a new character. For example, Jack Kirby's Kamandi. Get DC Comics Presents issue 64 and check him out. If it's up your alley, get the series. If it's not your cup of tea, you still have a fun Superman team-up comic, and you're not out $40 for the Kamandi collection DC is selling. And there are 97 issues in the series. Some characters team up with Superman in many issues, The Flash and Aquaman, etc. But there are many other characters who only show up once or twice. Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld, Batgirl, Zatanna, Starman, Dial H for Hero, Vixen, Airwave, Vigilante, and countless others. Where would you hear about any of these characters outside of DC Comics Presents? And each issue is written in the old style of comic writing, ensuring any questions you have about the characters are answered by the end of the issue. By the time you finish, you know who the character is, what they are like, and the tone of their stories. The perfect risk-free introduction. If you want to familiarize yourselves with DC lore, DC Comics Presents is the way to go. But where should you start the series? If you're already a comic book fan, I would say you could start with issue number 1. But for newcomers to the wonderful world of DC Comics, which we all are at one point or another, I would suggest starting at issue 3, or better yet, issue number 4. Issues 1 and 2 are a two-part story featuring Superman and the Flash in a time-traveling science fiction adventure. Very fun stories, to be sure, but not very new reader-friendly. Issue number 3, with Superman teaming up with Adam Strange, is a bit better. It's a one-shot, but it's still a bit wild and woolly for a new reader. I know it confused me the first couple of times I read it. Issue number 4 is my favorite comic of all time. Superman teaming up with the Metal Men, and is where I recommend you start. This is where the series really hits its stride. The issue takes place mostly on Earth, with a straightforward story and fantastic characters and art. This was my introduction to the Metal Men, my favorite DC characters after Superman. Yes, even more than Batman. A team of robots that can shapeshift into anything they can imagine, each with different personalities and abilities. I love it! Issue number 4 tells you about the world that they live in, and introduces you to a villain of theirs, Chemo. This is the best place to jump into because it gives you the best feel for the overall series. From issue number 4, it's all smooth sailing. You can revisit the first 3 issues after you've gotten into your groove. But what's great about DC Comics Presents is that it's a great introduction to more than just the characters. If you want, you can familiarize yourselves with writers and artists too. In fact, this was where I fell in love with Curt Swan's Superman. I had seen Jose Luis Garcia Lopez's and Murphy Anderson's versions of the Action Ace in the first 5 issues, but issue 6, Superman and Green Lantern, was my introduction with Mr. Superman artist himself, Curt Swan. So imagine my surprise when I began to read Superman in Action Comics and Mr. Swan was the main artist. But you also get artists like Don Heck, Joe Staton, Rich Buckler, Jim Starlin, Dick Dillon, Kurt Schaffenberger, Alex Saviuk, Joe Kubert, and Gil Kane, and writers like Cary Bates, Marty Pasco, Len Wein, and Roy Thomas. Everyone who is anyone worked on this series at one point or another. And if that wasn't enough, then you get the backup feature that ran for several issues, Whatever Happened to So-and-so. In a 6 to 8 page story, you get an adventure telling about a long-forgotten hero, from the Crimson Avenger to Rex the Wonder Dog. You're introduced to heroes who haven't had new adventures in decades, and if they pique your curiosity, you can hunt down their old adventures. I know I have. DC Comics Presents is the place to dive into the fantastic world of DC Comics. Again, take it from me. This is how I fell into DC. And with James Gunn, Mr. Obscure Character, at the helm of the new DCU, I guarantee that if you familiarize yourselves with this series, you'll be prepared for what he has in store for the next 10 years of DC films. I thank you very much for listening. Until the next video.